This is a podcast by WellHouse Church, where certain things are fixed, the essentials of faith, and the best beer is served on tap, while everything else is just a matter of perspective.
What's cracking, beer lovers?
Hey, 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 hey.
We back with some more beer and some more theology.
Beer, mo theology.
I swear that's got to be
Oh,
on a
it's gonna
hat
be
or something.
it's gonna be on a
Right,
t-shirt and a hat and a koozie and a whole lot of other crap.
a beer cozy.
A beer cozy.
A beer cozy.
Yep, you got to keep them comfortable while you're drinking it. It's a cozy.
Shout out the ranch.
That's right.
Hey, Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. All right. So for all of our people on YouTube, I apologize. I am going to be looking at my phone most of this episode, but it's because we got some wings cooking on the pit, and I don't want to overcook them. So.
Yeah. And I just realized that the entire, this is now the fourth episode that we've recorded tonight. I've been fiddling with this watch. Because
you don't wear watch a lot.
I'm not used to wearing a watch, but
Yeah.
my friend left this on my kitchen table,
Oh.
and I was like, I was looking at it.
Has it been at your house for 30 days?
No, it's not legally mine. I wish.
Like, you know that rule, right?
Yeah, it's not legally mine. But no, he left it on my kitchen table. We were playing poker the other night, and he just took it off and set it down.
Yeah.
And I was just looking at it. I was like, that's a really nice watch.
Yeah.
And I just put it on to see how it would look, and I was like, that actually looks really good.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to record. I'm going to leave it on.
I'm going to put this watch on.
And so now I'm fiddling with it, and now I think I want to wear a watch again.
Nice.
Because I haven't worn a watch in years.
I love wearing a watch.
I do too.
Now, I'm definitely a millennial because I wear a smartwatch.
Right.
But that's because I'm a bad millennial and I leave my phone everywhere. So all that crap pops up on my watch.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
get that.
oh, yeah. And it's also like...
And it connects to your AirPods too.
I'm an Apple fanboy. Like, everything connects. And
If I had more money,
yeah,
I would have an Apple Watch and AirPods too.
Yeah, mo money's mo problems.
Yeah.
I'm just letting you know.
If I had more money, I would buy all of these things. But I'm a broke
Yeah.
college student. I live in a flipping trailer
Yep.
for all of that.
Yep, straight up.
So
We got some good beers tonight.
I'm very excited.
All right, so let's talk about yours first because I do think it's the cooler of the two beers, and I'm jealous that he's drinking it and not me.
I bought it, so I chose it for
Yeah,
me.
so Clayton did buy beer today, and so it was his choice. And
It is a double dry hopped hazy India Pale Ale called Mutagen. And for you guys on YouTube, you can see, what does that remind you of from your childhood?
TMNT.
It should remind you of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I was a
I don't know how they were able to pull that off and not license that.
I was a total shellhead growing up, though.
Yeah.
It looks almost identical.
It does. It looks so cool, even down to the red.
Yeah. Dude,
I'm
it
like,
looks so close.
I don't know how they were able to do that and not license it.
I don't know either. I saw this and it caught my eye as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And you remember, I was crazy about it growing up.
Clayton
as a kid,
was insane about it.
I had them. I had all of the action figures.
Yeah, for sure.
I was really into it. It's from Ingenious Brewing Company. It is 8.2. And it is a pint. So careful. The Traeger is beeping.
It is beeping. It has reached our goal, so I'm going to put it on keep warm, and our wings will be ready when the episode is over.
Dope. Yeah, so it's got Citra hops in it, oat cream. Yeah, I think that's all I can say about it without tasting it.
Nice. And so I have something that Clayton also got. Once again, he bought an IPA, didn't let me drink it. This guy.
It's because I love you and I want you to experience more than hops.
Yeah. So I have, once again,
Another Untitled Art.
Another Untitled Art.
I really like what they're doing over there.
Yeah,
I want to support them.
They're
as much as possible.
They're doing a lot of different things in brewing.
That's why I want to support them.
And I have, no joke, this is legit. This is what it says on the can. chocolate raspberry imperial stout.
Okay, pause. Who remembers in the room what other beer we've had like that?
Well, the St. Arnold.
Hey, St. Arnold.
Yeah,
you want to
Straight up.
sponsor us and do a partnership?
But this says on the bottom of the can, it says imperial stout with raspberry puree and milk sugar.
Yeah.
I bet this is going to be sweet out of its mind. And unfortunately, once again, like always, HEB get better. I'm trying to pull this off. The
sticker is blocking the ABV.
Ho! Ho!
Did you get it off?
No, but I got enough to see 11% ABV. Woo! We ain't playing around tonight, apparently. It's a good thing we got wings about to come off the
We're
pit.
about to eat because he needs to eat.
After this, I will.
My
goodness.
When you're drinking, beer lovers, as you probably know, I don't need to tell you this, but in case you've never heard, when you're drinking,
you need to eat.
It's always important to eat.
And it's like I say all the time.
Thing to eat.
Yeah, so it's like I say all the time. You could be drinking and you're okay. If you drinking, that's another problem.
The I versus the A.
Yeah, is a problem.
Yeah.
In the same way, if you're drinking, you need to be eating. you
You need to be snacking.
You need to be putting some food in that body.
Well, so if you're drinking, you need food. If you're drinking,
if you drinking, you need to stop. If you drinking and you're getting close to the limit where you need to start thinking about food, you need to quit drinking.
You need to stop. Yeah. But if you're drinking, you need to eat. Right.
Yeah.
I see.
For sure.
I see what you're saying.
For
I
sure.
agree.
All right. Let's try these.
Let's do it, dude. I'm so excited.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm jealous.
Ooh, that was a nice one.
Ooh. That legit looks like caramel.
Oh, dude, that looks delicious.
I don't know. YouTube people, can you see that? I'm going to try not to spill it and let you. Yeah, I spilled it.
That looks delicious, though.
It does.
This is why I miss pouring them in glasses.
Yeah, but.
Because they can't see the color on the camera.
Yeah, but. Ooh.
Hmm.
Ooh.
Whoa. That is interesting as junk.
All right, we've never done this before. Swap taste?
Swap taste.
Let's do it.
Mmm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my god.
Oh, yeah. Two, and going with the theme, ingenious brews.
Yeah, absolutely. This Untitled Art, that's my favorite Untitled Art we've had
I'm
yet.
like, legit, it tastes like you're drinking chocolate.
It legit does. It tastes like a chocolate raspberry candy.
And I love.
That is delicious.
I love.
Red, too.
Yeah, like, it's got a red hue to it.
It's like red.
It's almost like you melded a really dark porter with an amber or like an Irish red. And like you got this, I mean, it legit, you can't see it, but it almost looks similar to like Big Red around the rim.
Yeah.
It's like super
absolutely.
red.
It's very red. It's very chocolatey, super raspberry.
It's insane.
It is delicious.
Yours is also a very, very good IPA.
I really enjoy it. It's sweeter than I expected.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. You don't get a lot of IPAs that are sweet in flavor. They're almost tart and bitter because of the added hop.
Don't hear me. It's not like a simple sweetness.
No. It's not like a complex sugar.
It's a very malty kind of sweetness.
Yeah, it's like it provides the balance you want with something that's super hoppy.
Yeah, and which is a really good balance to that Citra.
Yep,
right,
for sure. For sure.
I really enjoy this. I will probably be buying another one of these. As will I be buying another one of those.
I was going to say, I will be buying both of these again because those are insane.
You know what we need to do?
What?
We need to open a beer bar and just start keeping a list of all of the beer that we do on Pints and Perspectives and start trying to source and pull them in.
It's going to be called WellHouse Brews. It's already a thing, I know. But the problem is our listener base is so worldwide.
Yeah.
That to isolate into one place seems impossible because we have so many people
all over the place.
At this point, we're up to like over 1,000 unique individuals that listen to this podcast. We're like 600 downloads a month.
Yeah. And you know what would be even cooler, though? We could start featuring some of our own brews.
We could like
and
the black IPA if we could figure out how to recreate it.
And we could call it, dude. We could call it the narrative.
It is telling a story.
It is telling a story from the first time it hits you until the back of your palate.
Well, not just that, though. Its inception came from a great story where we screwed up a different beer.
As did, and here's another good connection, as did humanity in the narrative of Scripture, which requires Jesus, which requires grace and salvation, and then the second coming, and heaven on earth.
Together. It all works together.
Black IPA is now and forever known. And if you are here listening to this, you are lucky.
You are an OG.
If you are here listening and know this,
it's the narrative.
It is now forever known as the narrative IPA.
Agreed. It has been declared. I don't have a gavel.
Smack.
Yeah, I don't have a gavel. Like hitting the Bible with my fist is the best I can do.
Lord Jesus, let this be known.
Amen.
Among all the nations.
Amen. All right. Let's do this thing because I really want to eat some wings.
I do too.
All right. Continuing on women. Man, I cannot get over how good this beer is.
It's a good beer.
It's a really
enjoy it. It's like a dessert, man.
It is. It is like super good.
I haven't had a beer that complex and that delicious in a long
time. I was thinking like St. Arnold's Bishop Barrel.
So I've never had any of the Bishop Barrels.
You never had any of them?
No, I've never been to the brewery because I was going to go for my 21st, but flipping COVID.
Number 21. Number 21's the best one they've ever made. It had a cherry adjunct in it. Oh my God, the best one. Anyways, once again, shout out St. Arnold. Hit us up.
Yeah, let's do a partnership. I'm serious. Come on.
All right. So here's the deal. We're talking about women, right?
Yeah, we're talking about
women. And last week we talked about 1 Timothy, and we talked a ton about 1 Corinthians 11.
Yeah.
I want to do an episode which is this episode, just dedicating ourselves to 1 Corinthians 11.
That's needed.
Now, something you need to know, listener, when you open your Bible and you look and you get chapter and verse and subheadings, none of that exists in Greek.
No.
It's a letter.
Yeah.
You don't even get, in ancient letter writing, you don't even get paragraphs.
Yeah.
And in true ancient letter writing, you don't even get punctuation.
Right. So, and because of that, this is a super weird transition here, right? So I was just reading this and thinking about all of the things. I didn't know you were going to go here, and I was just thinking about and reading all of this and just thinking it's super weird. We go from verse 33 in 1 Corinthians 10. Just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, not seeking my own advantage, but that of many so that they may be saved, to verse 1 of chapter 11, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. And then we go into head coverings. I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions, blah, 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 blah.
Well, it feels like a good flow.
It does feel like a good flow.
The subheading's what screws it up.
The subheading flips it.
Yeah, the subheading in the chapters, like, I really wish that we could find a different way to do this.
Yeah.
Because if you're reading for the narrative, if you're reading for the progress, the development of the letter, the subheadings screw it up.
Well, and if you're reading the NRSV, right, you have verse 1, be imitators of me as I am of Christ, head coverings.
So, yeah, subheading, head coverings, next section.
It's so weird.
They go to get, all of this goes together.
Literally, so like, we have said this before, and we will say it a million times before. The epistles are meant to be read in one sitting.
They are a letter.
Yeah.
That's read in one sitting before the entire congregation.
Yes.
Why do you think I love the Voice Bible?
Because it doesn't use these types of headings.
No subheadings.
Yeah, it just flows like a story, like a narrative.
And it's written in playwright.
Yes.
It is a narrative.
And
I get crap all the time when I tell people I love the Voice Bible, but it's because it fits with my theological implications.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to go grab your Voice Bible over there if that's okay.
Yeah, it's right over there. Yeah. So while Clayton's running away, I really have a problem with chapter, verse, and subheadings. I wish there were a way to direct people to sections of the text where we didn't have to use those. Yeah. Unfortunately, I've not figured out a better way, and so I stick with what we have, but I really want to move away from this.
Yeah. The thing about the Voice Bible and what they're doing here without the headings is it flows like a narrative, but also there is narration.
Yes.
Right. We have in the middle of chapter 11, we won't get there, I don't think, in this episode, but...
Well, we'll go through 1 through 16.
Yeah, we're not going to get there because the narration doesn't happen until in between 26 and 27.
Yeah.
Anyways, it flows like a narrative like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And here, that is very important.
Yeah.
Right? Because you see the context of everything happening before and everything happening after.
Yeah.
You don't try to break it up into these individual things.
Correct. All right, so let's jump into this. Clayton.
Yes.
Oh, over there. Will you go grab my Greek Bible, please? So I want to talk about this because there's something very important that people don't understand when they read 1 Corinthians 11. Sorry. People don't understand this when they read 1 Corinthians 11. And it's super important to truly being able, I think, this is IMO, to being able to truly understand this. So Paul says in 11:1, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. Okay, so he's telling every person, be an imitator of me. Which, right before that, he says, I don't seek my own advantage, but that of many, so that they may be saved.
Yeah.
That's a hint clause. That's so that, for the purpose of, they may be saved. Then he says in verse 2, I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions just as I handed them on to you. But I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of his wife, and God is the head of Christ. All right, listener, hear me on this. In Greek, he says, I command you that everyone remember me in all things, that all the things be remembered according to me. Also that I've passed on to you, but I will, verse 16, that you understand that every man is the head, that Christ is the head of every man, and that every man is the head of every woman. There is no verb as those continue.
So I do want to clarify. In the NRSV, that is actually verse 3.
Yeah, it is in verse 3. I read through all of it.
You said 16.
Did I say 16?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I said 16. I'm probably hungry. Yeah, so in the NRSV, verse 3 says,
but I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of his wife, and God is the head of Christ.
Yeah, so I'm going to read it to you in the most literal, word-for-word Greek translation I can give. But I will or wish you to understand that every man, the head of the Christ is, so that Christ is the head of every man, and the head of woman, the man, So the head of the woman is the man. But the head of Christ, the God.
Mm-hmm.
There's no verb. So what's happening here, in Greek, you don't have to supply a verb for every time you need to use the verb.
Right.
If you don't give a verb, you use the preceding verb.
Right.
So you've just got a bunch of like pronouns and nouns and adjectives that make up sentences because you carry the verb. So when you go back to the NRSV, here's what happens. And YouTube listeners, I want you to watch my hands. But I want you to understand that Christ is the head of every man, and the husband is the head of his wife, and God is the head of Christ. You see what I just did?
Mm-hmm.
You have to carry the verb. You cannot change the order. Paul is being very specific in exactly what he is saying. I want you to understand that Christ is where I'm starting, is the head of every man, and the husband is below Christ, who's the head of every woman, who's below the man. But God is the head of Christ. We've made a circle.
Yeah.
Intentionally, I think, Paul has made a circle in what that is. Would you say that God...
Oh.
You see where I'm,
I see where you're going. Keep going.
God and Jesus, God and Christ are 3 in 1.
Yes.
They are equal. And this progression is not a hierarchy. It is a circle.
I love it.
And you get that because there's no flipping verb.
We love to see
carry it.
We love to see it. Put this on a flipping t-shirt.
No, there's no way to put this in a t-shirt. I mean, unless you did a diagram, maybe.
Yeah, you do a diagram.
You go down and then back up? Yeah.
No, you start with God, Christ, or man, woman, back to God.
Yeah, maybe so. We might put that on a t-shirt.
But
the point here is that Paul could have continued to supply the verbs.
Yeah, he could have.
He chose not to.
Yeah.
Paul could have differentiated these. He chose not to. Paul could have started with God and worked down in a hierarchy.
But he didn't.
He chose not to. This is a circular, a cyclical thing that Paul is doing here, and that cannot be missed.
Well, but that also feeds back into the whole husbands love your lives like Christ, love your wives like Christ loved the church. Wives submit to your husbands, yada yada yada.
Yeah, right? I don't disagree with that at all.
All of that feeds back in. But however, when we look at that text, we have to remember that it's both sacrificial in nature.
Agreed.
Right?
100%.
The author is saying the exact same thing, just with different words.
Agreed.
Feeding back into the cycle. That's why I've never heard you use that cyclical metaphor before, but it fits so well, and that's why I flipped.
Well, I used that. I was in a seminary class at Truett, and I was in a class called Paul for Pilgrims. It was taught by the dean, Dr. Todd Still, who I absolutely love, a man of the utmost grace. He's teaching this class, and he's the dean of the seminary. Like, deans don't teach classes.
Right. That doesn't generally happen.
But he decides to teach this class, and I happen to be able to get into it. Mm-hmm. And we're having this conversation, and we're talking about 1 Corinthians. No, we're talking about women in general, because the whole idea was Paul for pilgrims. And so the idea was that Paul was on pilgrimage, and as he went to places and met people, he developed as a person on pilgrimage.
Yep.
And so we went through a season of that class where we talked about the role of women upon Paul's beliefs and ministry.
Yeah. Excuse me.
We're talking about that. And in the class, somebody happens to mention something, and I don't remember offhand what it was, but it was very derogatory towards women, which is like uber taboo at Truett.
Yeah.
If you ever wanted to be a woman, or if you were ever a woman or wanted to be a woman, and you wanted to go to seminary, go to Truett. That is the most affirming
Truett.
place you could ever be.
Go to
If
Truett.
you want to be theologically moderate or conservative in every other area,
Go to Truett.
go to Truett. And so somebody makes this comment, and it's not super derogatory towards women, but like it was derogatory enough that it ruffled my feathers.
Oh, ooh.
And I just sat there, and then somebody else chimed in.
Said something else derogatory?
Said something else, but this other person brought up 1 Corinthians 11, and Dr. Still was about to respond, and I said, "Hey, Dr. Still, can I take this one?" And he was like, "Yeah, what do you got?" And I did that exact thing.
The cycle.
And Dr. Still looked at me and goes, "I have not thought about that." And like, end of conversation. It was just over.
Well, but when you look at the Greek and how it
Makes sense.
Because when you look at it here,
But
it looks weird.
but
It feels
why?
weird.
But why does he mention the head?
I don't know why.
Because he's about to talk about head coverings of women.
Okay.
He's abolishing head coverings.
I get it. I see it now.
It makes sense.
It
the whole
fits
thing,
in
the question throughout the rest of the narrative is, can women pray and prophesy with their head uncovered?
Right.
Paul ends up eventually saying, do what's pleasing to the society.
Right. Essentially.
But his beginning place makes space for women not to have to wear head coverings. Because
So-
as man may be the head of woman, Christ is the head of man, and God is the head of Christ. It's a cyclical thing.
Yeah, I love it, dude. I love it. I absolutely love it. I will steal this. I will give you credit for the first 2 times, and then I'm going to steal it.
At least six, because this is uniquely original to me.
Yeah,
I have
absolutely.
not found anyone, and for Todd still to look at me and go, I have not thought about that. This is mine.
Yeah, no, absolutely it is. I was joking, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I was joking.
You can give me credit, but like I need at least 6, not 2.
I'm going to give you credit forever. Like, because
this is uniquely mine.
That is absolutely fundamentally different than anything I've ever heard.
Yeah, well, because nobody's talking about it that way.
Yeah.
Paul could have used verbs. Paul could have started with God. Paul could have done a whole lot of things, and he chose not to.
Yeah.
Nobody in their right mind refutes that Paul wrote 1 Corinthians.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot miss that.
Yeah.
The question here is, can women pray and prophesy in church with their head uncovered? Paul ends up saying, do what's best for the society. Cover your head if you feel you need to.
Be all things to all people.
But
right?
That's chapter 9.
Yeah.
We're not very far removed from that.
Yeah.
And once again, it's a narrative. All this flows together.
Yeah. You read this in one
You
sitting.
can't read 11 without reading 9.
Yeah.
But Paul begins the section about head coverings, talking about a cyclical thing about the head of every individual person.
Absolutely.
Paul is 100% affirming women here in any and all capacities in the church office.
Yeah.
No question in my mind.
So I've talked about this stuck
Coaster
to the bottom
gone.
of the coaster.
Coaster gone.
So while I explain this, you can grab it. We've talked about this on this podcast. I've told this story in a few different variations on this podcast before. I had this exact conversation about 1 Corinthians 11 with a person once.
Okay.
That ended in a very heated kind of conversation.
I've had 1,000 of those.
Yeah,
Literally 1,000 of those.
I've talked about this exact conversation on here multiple times.
Yep.
That conversation also included other things that I'm not ready to get into. But but it ended up on women, and it came back to 1 Corinthians 11.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have in my tool belt what you just explained.
No.
I now have that in my tool belt. And next time this text comes up, I will be using it.
You and Todd Still and about 12 other people in the room of that seminary class have that in your tool belt.
And now about
That's it. Because literally, I went after that, and Dr. Still was like, I hadn't thought about that. I literally left and like went looking for someone talking about this and couldn't find one.
I've never heard that before.
Even my mentor and my first or my second Greek professor, but the one that was most influential upon me, his name's Tim Brookins. He's a just Greek guru, and he specializes in 1 Corinthians. When I went back and talked to him about that, he was like, I hadn't thought about it. And this is a dude that's written 2 different commentaries on 1 Corinthians.
Yeah.
Hadn't thought about that cyclical cycle there.
But it feels like it makes sense, right? The way the narrative flows, it feels like it makes sense.
The flow of the narrative, especially moving the head coverings, and Paul's choice to use the word. So Paul uses the word. So he talks about head coverings, and it's very clearly, a play off of, like when he's talking about head coverings, it's a word that's a cognate of the word he chooses to use for head, which is kephale. Paul could have said submission. Paul could have said authority. Paul could have said a number of things. He chose kephale, a cognate of head covering, to talk about this. You cannot miss the synonymy of what's happening here.
Yeah. He starts with the head of man is Christ, and then moves into whether or not
of Christ or the head of woman is man,
right?
And the head of God
go through all that, but
is Christ. Yeah.
I wasn't going to go through all that but then immediately after that,
they're talking about head coverings.
Head coverings, whether or not women should teach and prophesy with their heads covered or uncovered.
Legit, right after that, any man. This is verse 4. Any man who prays or prophesies with something on his head disgraces his head. But any woman who prays or prophesies with her head unveiled disgraces her head. It is one and the same thing as having her head shaved. For if a woman will not veil herself, then she should cut off her hair, yada, yada, yada. It's disgraceful for a woman. For a man ought not have his head veiled, which, once again, there's a lot of cultural things we don't have time to get into there, but we don't care.
You know it's cultural.
We don't care if men wear hats now, and we don't care if men have long hair, and we don't care if women have short hair.
And we don't care if
they don't wear hats.
Right.
It's not a thing. Like, it's all cultural.
Hold on. There are some traditions that still...
There are, for sure. But in America, we definitely don't care.
In America, there
by and large. There are always outliers.
Yeah.
By and large. So here's what Paul says. At the very end, this is verse 14. Does not nature itself teach you that if a man wears long hair, it is degrading to him?
Yeah.
Does nature teach that? I don't know. I grow hair all the time, and if I don't cut it, it would be long as hell.
But can we not think back to Samson? Right? Like,
yeah. That's a great point. I never thought about that. That's a great point.
Yeah, like God told him not to cut his hair, and then when he did, he lost his strength. Like,
that's a really great. I've never thought about. That's a really good point. It's not disgraceful for Samson.
No.
So why is it? Well, and it's not disgraceful for Jesus because he's a Nazarene.
Yeah, and Nazarenes had long hair.
Yeah, it's like what? That's I need to think about that. That's a really good point.
Thank you. I have a good one every now and then.
Verse 15, but if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for a covering. But if anyone is disposed to be contentious, we have no such custom, nor do the churches of God.
Yeah.
Paul says she's good just wearing her hair. He, even at the very end, bucks the societal norm and says she's good to go. Her hair.
Yeah.
It's a covering for her.
But ultimately, be all things to all people.
That's absolutely what he says. And what is all things to all people? All things to all people is stay in your lane, bro. Let women do what God has told women to do, and you do you. Stay the heck out of the way of the ladies trying to do the work of God, no matter what it is and whether or not you agree with it.
I feel so bad because we're two dudes sitting here having this conversation, but we are allies.
I don't. Here's the deal.
I would love to get a woman's voice on this podcast.
I want a woman's voice on here too. And maybe I will get one. I got no shame for this because women won't get a voice if men don't begin speaking for them. That's what we're doing here. Ladies, if there's anything I want you to know at WellHouse Church, you are loved, you are valued, and you are not hindered here at all.
Absolutely. So the whole idea of equity is that and we've talked about this before, and we're going to keep talking about it because this is very important to me and very important to WellHouse in our view of justice. The idea of equity is you have to give up power to give power, right? And we as white males have to give up our power to give power back to women. And so we have to create space. We have to give up of our own content and of our own voice to create space for women to share theirs. And that starts by us saying, we affirm women in ministry. We want women to have an equal voice to us. That's where that starts. We can't just step back and let women do their thing without saying, yeah, we got this. Like they got this and we're on their side and they got good stuff to say. Like you feel what I mean?
Straight up. I think if men don't speak up and give a voice for women, women are not going to create that voice on their own.
Well, it's not that they couldn't, it's that
it will definitely take longer. And I actually would say I don't think they could.
Well, because societally and systematically, women are oppressed.
Oh, they are oppressed. They are an oppressed people group.
And therefore, they cannot have a voice of their own, or at least as strong of a voice.
That's the deal. In the words of Adam Cheney on Let's Talk, if you ever want to oppress a people group, take away their voice. Women have not had a voice in the church. It's time.
Just FYI, that's not original to Adam.
It's not, but it's time that we give them their voice back.
Yeah.